It is the third day of resumption for schools in some states in Nigeria, which were closed for about 6 months as a result of the pandemic.
While learning activities are gradually picking up, students are settling back into new school life. But the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has stressed the need for more vigilance in spite of appreciable progress recorded in controlling the deadly virus.
Social development advocate and child rights lawyer Taiwo Akinlami is here in the studio to give us insight into all of this. Taiwo, good morning.
Good morning.
And nice
Good
to see
morning.
you.
It's my pleasure
Great.
to be with you this morning.
All right. Now, several schools are resuming in different states, you know, according to what they see and all of that. But as schools resume, the numbers are not totally down yet.
Yes.
Do you have concerns at this time?
Well, there are concerns. But at the same time, we have to recognize the fact that the world cannot continue to buckle under the impact of the pandemic. Life has to continue. WHO has told us that for a very long time to come, coronavirus has come to stay. So we have to now devise strategies of how to live with the virus without spreading it. And I think it is in that wisdom that, schools are being reopened, religious organizations are being reopened. Now, that should not give us the impression that coronavirus is no more with us. It's still very much around with us. From the figures we just read, we just saw, we can see that only yesterday over 1,000 people tested positive to the virus. So we still need to embrace caution. We still need to follow the guidelines and the protocols that the government has put in place. We must never forget that the world has changed and things are not going to continue, are not as they used to be. So safety, hygiene, protocol guidelines must be carefully followed.
From what we have seen, especially where our reporters have been able to monitor, they found out that most of the students were not keeping up with the protocol put in place, and where the strategies where some classes resume at a particular time in the morning, others in the afternoon, some of the students had to go to school, especially those who were not meant to resume at a time. They say that their parents are not at home, they have nowhere to go, so they had to come to school. And so striking a balance is seemingly being a challenge. Teachers are overwhelmed with the numbers and trying to, what should government do? Should the government be looking at hiring more teachers, or perhaps training the teachers on issues when issues arise in terms of incidents in cases like this?
Well, I think that we're people who don't adapt to change early. Now, and parents also have their own issues to deal with. I mean, they are working, schools have reopened, and there are guidelines that have been put in place. Due to one reason or the other, these guidelines are not being followed. I think the next thing to do is to do a quick review, because if you do not do the review, what is going to happen is that there's going to be a spike. There are countries, US for example, schools were opened, there was a spike, they have to shut down. Different countries have experienced that, it's not new. So if you don't follow the guidelines, there's going to be crisis. We're just sitting on a keg of gunpowder, drinking tapioca and ordering toothpick. If we continue to do that, it ought not to be so. So I think government needs to be vigilant. Government needs to address the issue frontally. Why are children coming to school where they're not supposed to come to school? It cannot be swept under the carpet. There has to be a commitment to quickly review the situation and nip whatever is causing people to flout the guidelines in the board.
When you say government has to approach this frontally, how do you mean?
I mean that, okay, these problems are not authored by ghosts. They are things that are tangible, they are empirical, they can be seen. So if they are empirical and they can be seen, why are parents, releasing their children to school? Maybe we need to have a conversation with parents immediately. Why are teachers not adhering to the guidelines? Maybe we need to call a meeting of the teachers immediately. If parents need to be empowered, if they need to be, maybe there's a palliative that needs to be extended to parents, maybe we need to do all of that. The most important thing is that now when those guidelines were developed, it was developed with the possibility of ensuring that schools continue without spreading the virus. Once those guidelines are not followed, then one part of that arrangement has been faulted. And when it is faulted, what we are going to see is a spike. Don't forget that these figures we are talking about are to the extent of the testings we are doing. I don't think as of today, Nigeria has done 1 million tests out of 200 million people. So you still have a major problem. So that is why our greatest strength in Africa, in Nigeria, is to see to the curbing of COVID-19. That is why we cannot play politics with it. That is why we cannot kick our children around like football. We have to be up and doing. And what I think we need to do immediately from the reports that you have mentioned, what we think we need to do immediately is to do a on-the-ground assessment of what is going on right now. But the question is this: is that being done? Is on-the-ground assessment being done? Because I think review should be per day to see how people are complying. And going back to the drawing board, making new rules, if the rule needs to be stringent, but ultimately, if schools cannot continue and we cannot keep the rule, it's better for the children to stay at home than to be endangered in the name of going to school. That's very, very important.
Now, one major concern for the PTF and even the government is the fact that a lot of Nigerians are not taking responsibility. Even before schools reopened, that has been a major issue. Now, when you're looking at taking responsibility, a lot of children do not know how to take responsibility in cases like this. One, they say charity begins at home. What is the role of parents at this time at addressing this issue and ensuring that perhaps help teachers make their work easier?
Well, parents have a huge role to play. And when we use the word parent, we always look at the primary parents. Those are the biological parents. But you see, parenting is a four-dimensional responsibility. We have the primary parent, the secondary parent. But let me dwell on the responsibility of parents. And when we talk about parents here, we have to look at the lower crust, the hoas of wood and drawers of water, the oi polloi, and we have to look at the upper crust. So there are some parents, their existence is already abused. There's little or nothing they can do about the state of affairs. When you go to Isolo, Tabon, Logro, all those densely populated area, 44 rooms, an average of 8 people in a room, 1 toilet, 1 bathroom. What do you say about that? That's the same crisis they are facing in India, and they are saying social distancing is not possible in that kind of environment. So that's one leg of parents. Those ones, there's little or nothing they can do. Now, when it now comes to the upper crust parents who have means, parents who have resources, we cannot be talking to them about what to train their children about, what to talk to their children about, and all of that. I've been to all of those communities during this COVID. I've been to Isolo. Isolo is supposed to be urban, but you see children there. We have to insist on social distance and all of these things. These are things, there's even this sense of thinking that all of these things, because pandemic is a scamdemic, nothing like that. So we still have to convince people to say, COVID is real, it exists, but you need to follow the guidelines and the precaution. So if we're looking at the two, we first have to see what do we do to alleviate the poverty immediately of those lower crust people, the house of wood and drawers of water. They are 82 million. Now, we now come to parents who have resources. We just need to educate them, we just need to inform them, but you need to understand again now that the gap between the have and the have-nots keep widening. And what we have is that what we used to call the middle class seems, evaporating. So what is happening is that there is a lot of pressure on parents today. So the much they can do is to talk to their children, educate their children, liaise with the teachers. I hope you know that schools also have not found it easy. When you take Lagos State, for example, 80% of the education in Lagos, the educational sector, is managed by the private sector. Right. 1,700 public schools competing with over 18,000 private schools. So we're still talking about the private sector. There has to be a lot of liaising, at that level. Because if we don't do that, we are just sitting on a keg of gunpowder.
So in that case, with the reality of this socio-economic and all of that realities that we are facing, it becomes difficult for what we want to see, that ideal of trying to ensure that people adhere to some of the protocols. Is that it?
It's tough. For example, in Lagos State, before COVID, a class meant for 40 people were being occupied by 140 people, 120 people. minimum 80 people. You know, crowded in a classroom as if they are crowded in a prison. So now there's a reopening. In this reopening, children are staggered to go to school. Some go on Monday, some go on Wednesday. Now, those ones who when you stagger resumption, when you stagger, you know, the timetable, and people are assigned to come at different days, those ones who don't come, who are at home, what do? Now, for the upper crust, they hook on online. I hope you know that 46 million Nigerian children did not have access to education during COVID. Right. And now, they were 13.5 before COVID. Now, so when you say some people should come to school on a particular day, those ones that go home, some of them will watch TV, right? And some of them would find their way. Some of them will listen to radio. But you see, I've been to Badagry, you know, and they told me, when I asked them about this radio thing, radio and TV, they said, is it not the person that has light that will watch TV? Is it not the person that has light that will empower radio? He said, so we don't have light, we don't have fuel has been increased, NEPA tariff has gone up. So what do? So we need to address all of these issues urgently. It is not about guidelines, not about rules and regulations. It's about whether there is a conducive environment for the implementation of those rules. You see, because no matter how much we try, there is no magic that can make things happen except we put in place the infrastructure and the machinery to make them happen. So we need to be thinking about how do we create a level playing field for all of our children, even in this crisis.
All right. A serious question there, but Taiwo Akinlami, we'll have to leave the conversation here now. Thank you so much
for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you.
All right.